Hey everybody, welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Zac Hill here with Reid Duke. Reid, you just defeated Patrick Chapin in a feature match to go to 9-1. We're going to go through your deck. In general, how happy are you with your deck right now?
It's pretty solid. I mean, I didn't get the insane bomb rares that you're always hoping for when you start a draft, but I was definitely able to piece together something solid that works without a lot of holes in the deck, so, you know, no complaints.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look actually at that deck, and if we can go ahead and look at the first pack and see how it went from here. Now, this is your first pack. Can you tell us kind of what you're thinking about when you see a pack that looks like this?
Well, the first thing I looked at was the rare, which is, you know, not exciting. So I moved on. Basara Tower Archers is like basically a premium 2-drop, but it's not going to make or break your deck, whether you have that card. Cast into Darkness is fine. Oakheart Dryads is fine. Oresco Swiftclaw and Hubris are all, you know, fine considerations, but Feast of Dreams is probably the best black common, you know, like pretty good removal spell. So I was pretty happy to start a draft like that.
And are you looking at Squelching Leeches here at the uncommon slot with the black
the
first
tricky
pick?
thing about Squelching Leeches is you don't want to pick it early because it's really only at its best if you end up mono black or mostly mono black. But the corollary to that is that it's a lot more likely to wheel, you know, like nobody's really going to be interested in it at the start, so I could take a different black card and maybe the Leeches will come around.
Awesome. So you took Feast of Dreams first pack. Let's go ahead and check that out and see what the next pack looks like. So you got Feast first. Coming around, you see a pack with really only one black card. Farika's Chosen, fine card, but are you looking toward other colors in this pack?
Yeah, I thought this was a close pick. One of the things I like about black is you can really pair with any color, in my opinion. But one of the ones I look to first is blue-black control. So I actually did consider Sigil Starfish here, but I decided to take the maybe slightly weaker card just for the sake of staying in black. I took Farika's Chosen.
And it's interesting, you say Farika's Chosen slightly weaker than Sigiled Starfish. A lot of people really are just like, don't pass Starfish, it's the best thing ever. Where does it fall in your pick order?
It's pretty high in the pick order. Sigiled Starfish is a card that I really, really want one copy of in my deck.
Interesting.
I actually don't love picking it second because then you'll get one fourth, and then the second copy is like really unexciting. So yeah, I mean, the fact that the first copy is so good in a slow deck made me consider this, but on the whole, it's not like, you know, you're allowed to pass Sigil Starfish.
I'm glad I have your permission. I'll remember that for the coverage drafts. All right, Farika's Chosen the second pick. Take a look at the next pack right now. So we've got two black picks in this set. We see a Cast into Darkness, another Starfish, which you may be looking at, Nyx Weaver, Oakheart Dryads, a pretty reasonable pack 3, it looks like, a decent amount of options.
Yeah, Cast into Darkness, certainly a playable card. But in this case, unlike the previous pick, I decided to go into a second color in you know, for the sake of getting a more powerful card.
Okay.
So I took the gold uncommon Nyx Weaver, figuring, you know, I could give up on green or I could just stay the course and draft a black-green graveyard deck.
Now, I have a question about Nyx Weaver. Say black-green graveyard deck. Is the mill ability of Nyx Weaver particularly relevant in this format?
It is. I mean, just the card in its own right, the mill ability is pretty good. Because if you have a bomb, or if you have a strong removal spell that you're going to want later in the game, the Nyx Weaver sort of digs to it, and then you can sacrifice the Nyx Weaver to you know, for the toolbox effect of getting whatever card you need. However, green and black also have, like, you know, a dozen other cards that make you happy to have the graveyard synergies. You know, Nemesis of Mortals, some of the reanimate effects like Rescue from the Underworld, and a couple of the really good rares, you know, if I'm fortunate enough to get those.
Awesome. Well, the suspense is killing me. We'll see if you were. Okay, so that's two black picks, a black-green gold card, Nyx Weaver. Taking a look at pack 4 right now, we see more green cards, a lot of Cast of Darknesses rolling around. Fawn of Fortune's a card draw. Luke Ricotta, which I still don't know how to evaluate. And then one of those graveyard effects in Fawn of Return, which can actually get back 3 creatures. So what are you thinking about this pack?
Well, first of all, the really good point that you made earlier about Squelching Leeches, or the really good question you asked about it, it's the same thing with Font of Return. This is not one of the first pick black cards, but having the Nyx Weaver already makes me really interested in potentially wheeling this card or picking one up late. But I'm looking at Cast into Darkness, Oakheart Dryads, Ravenous Luke Prada. But I picked Oakheart Dryads here because it's the cheapest creature, so like you can't really go wrong picking a cheap creature. And also there's pretty high upside to it. You know, if you build a black-green Constellation deck if you're able to make use of a card like Crufts' Insight, Oakheart Dryads can be pretty powerful.
All right, so it's an enchantment card. You know, yeah, it comes down early. You have a 2/3. It looks like your deck's pretty good at playing defense so far with a Death Touch 2/2/3s. Let's round out the journey into Nick's pick right here. See a 2/5, no abilities, a Fawn of Fertility, great card. Goldforge Sentinel, which a lot of people I've heard a lot of differing opinions on that card. Are you looking to pick a colored a spell in any of your colors? Are you looking at the 4/4? Are you looking at something else?
Yeah, there are a number of playable cards in this pack. I just went with the Goldenhide Ox to continue on the possible enchantment constellation theme.
How powerful is the Goldenhide Ox's constellation ability in the scope of things?
It's certainly a relevant ability, but it's not like insane. It's rare. If you're not, you know, on a strong constellation theme, it's rare that a Goldenhide Ox is going to win you a game that, say, Nessian Asp or even a Vulpine Goliath wouldn't win you otherwise. But it's a pretty good card, you know. You usually want 1 or 2 6-drops in a deck like this, and Goldenhide Ox is, you know, a fine one.
So basically you're saying this is a 6-drop, it's not bad, it gets the job done,
exactly.
It's kind of interchangeable. Okay, great. Let's take a look now. You're moving out of Journey into Nyx, into the Born of the Gods pack. Can you tell us first, before we really evaluate this pack, what if anything, are some of the other notable cards you got out of Journey into Nyx?
I looked at Hero of Eros and I was like, ugh, you know, this card is super powerful, but not only would I have to switch colors for it, I would also have to like completely, you know, 180 turn in the theme and strategy of my deck. So I was like, you know, if there's another card in this pack, I'm probably gonna have to pass Hero of Eros and just hope I don't lose to it.
Okay.
But Oracle's Insight, also very powerful, along with Nyxborn Triton, but the 2 cards in my colors that I was considering here were Swordwise Centaur and Raised by Wolves. Swordwise Centaur being, you know, a really strong 2-drop, which are important, but I felt at this point in the draft my deck needed a little bit more power, and Raised by Wolves is an enchantment to potentially go along with some of the picks I'd made earlier, so I went with that. All
right, let's take a look at Pack 2 right now. See Raised by Wolves coming out of it. A really, really powerful uncommon. We've seen it do a lot of work this week. Look at this pack. You're basically solidly in black-green. You see Satyr Wayfinder, which can enable some of your graveyard strategies. Way to the Underworld, which kind of does the enchantment thing, is also a removal spell. Searing Blood, Retraction Helix, really powerful cards in other colors. How straightforward is this pick?
I mean, it's a very, very unexciting pick. Theros Band Tromper is filler, you know, solid filler, but filler. And Satyr Wayfinder is definitely a pretty weak card, but plays well with what I'm trying to do. I ended up taking this. It's very questionable because the card may even have wheeled, and it's just a really weak pick too, but it's the card that I wanted most for my deck, so I took it.
All right, so look at Pack 3. Hopefully that's a little bit more exciting. 2-mana 1/1s that not exactly what you want to be doing this early in the pack. What is this pack showing you? I mean,
this
again,
pack
almost
was
nothing
awful.
in your color.
This was the low point of the draft. After the pick 2 Satyr Wayfinder and seeing this pack with like nothing for me, I was like, you know, this is just going to go off the rails and be awful. Thankfully, that didn't exactly happen, but this pick, there was nothing that I would hope to put in my deck. I just took Fellhide Spiritbinder, either as a counter draft or potentially, sometimes in these slow green decks, you end up with Nylea's Presences, and you can splash an off-color rare if you want.
Were you even looking at Forsaken Drifters, or is it just not
That's a card that's, you know, it's playable, but it's not really going to change my deck whether I play a Forsaken Drifters or a Return Centaur or a War Chanter of Mogus. All of these are just kind of like low quality filler cards. Doesn't really matter.
Okay, so you take Fellhide Spiritbinder, maybe you get a way to fix your mana, maybe you can splash it, and worst case, somebody else isn't getting it to be.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, great. Let's take a look at Pack 4. We see, whenever I see a Chromanicore, I'm getting a little bit excited. Necrobite, Starbreaker, Eidolon. I imagine you're not looking at Badger. And then, of course, Sudden Storm, one of the premier commons. How are you feeling about this pack, and how are you feeling about your overall draft at this point?
I'll be honest with you, I was eyeing that Chromanticore. Like I said, you know, the 5-color green strategy is one of my favorites in Triple Theros with the Nylea's Presences. But I decided to rein it in and just take Nyxborn Eidolon. It's a 2-drop creature, it's a bestow card, and it's an enchantment, so it's really perfect for me.
Were you at all looking at Butcher to follow up on Fellhide Minotaur, maybe to switch, or Sudden Storm to splash later on?
Not especially. I didn't have much reason to believe that red was going to come to me in Pack 3, so I thought it would be a little bit overly risky to like speculate on a possible, you know, color change into red.
And if you're going to change colors, might as well go 5 colors.
Yeah,
right?
At that point, right?
All right, great. So Eidolon, it's an enchantment creature. It's on curve. It kind of does not horrible. Let's round out the Born of the Gods pack right now. See, Black Oak, a nice tree, Springleaf Drum, go with that Chromatic Core.
Yeah.
More Necrobites. Loyal Pegasus slightly late, although, I guess it's around where it should be. Was this pick pretty easy for you?
Not easy. Necrobite's actually a pretty strong card, but when I build a defensive deck, I'm basically looking to make my deck creatures and removal, and there's not a lot of space for combat tricks. So I decided to go with the Black Oak, which is a really strong defensive card on the ground, and potentially can combo if I'm lucky enough to get a good inspired card later.
I was going to ask, that card it's a little bit challenging to evaluate. It's like, okay, 3 mana for an 0/5. How often does the ability come up if you're not doing anything fancy? Do you kind of go long in these decks, or how does that work?
It's easy to compare this card to Guardians of Meleus, just 0/6, no abilities. And the main difference is that if you have a Guardian, they can just attack you with like 3/2/1 creatures and get in some damage there. But with the Black Oak threatening to pump its power, it's mostly just the threat of that ability that ends up defending you much better. Because if they have a couple 2/2 creatures, they don't want to attack and have the Black Oak eat one of them. So it can wind up preventing more damage than just blocking one creature.
Makes sense. And like you said, there's some cute inspired things to go with it. Now,
yeah, and it's a black card for devotion,
Makes sense. So now, before we go back into Theros, was there anything coming out of Born of the Gods that you got, or were the rest of the packs as kind of weak as these were?
Actually, the best card that I got in Born of the Gods was a very late Pain Seer.
Oh, really?
Which, combos really well with this Black Oak, and is just a solid 2-drop, can randomly give you a nice advantage in the early game if your opponent has a slow start. I was really, really happy to pick that card up.
Awesome. Okay, let's round this out with Theros. Okay, so this is the pack 3. Got essentially pack 3, pick 1. See, a wide open Theros pack. You've got to be excited about Nemesis Immortals here. You've been setting
exactly.
up for this.
Some of those speculative picks I'd made earlier, it was really in the hopes of getting Nemesis Immortals. So short of getting some insane mythic rare, Nemesis Immortals is probably the single best card I could have gotten for my deck. I was really happy here.
Awesome. So you took that pretty straightforward. All right, let's look at the second pack now. He's got the Nemesis. Reid's gotten paid off for what he's trying to do. We see a pair of ordeals here. Sip of Hemlock, Pharika's Cure, both removal spells. I guess there's a Scry land, although you're probably not looking at. You said you wanted to basically be creatures and removal. Is that kind of what you continued here?
It is what I continued here, although I spent the entire time on this pick. It was really challenging. I felt my deck at this point was a little bit below par in terms of power, so I was like, maybe I need Ordeals just to steal a game. I really considered the Ordeal of Erebos here, and then once I decided against that, it was still a tough pick between Sip of Hemlock and Pharika's Cure. The Cure usually being the better, more efficient card, but if I was only going to have 1 or 2 removal spells in my deck, it's nice for them to be all-purpose. In the end, I just decided that the most disciplined pick was Pharika's Cure.
Okay, so you took Pharika's Cure. You've got a bunch of 2/3s. You've got this to deal damage. Seems like you're really well positioned against very aggressive decks.
That's what I would hope, yeah. I also had some late game strength with like Font of Return that actually did end up wheeling in that first pack. So if I could not die to an early heroic creature or like a flying rush, I'd be in good shape.
All right, so let's go ahead and round out Theros now. Pick 3 of Theros. Dark Betrayal, reasonable sideboard card. Baleful Eidolon, really powerful. Also, Time Defeat is a removal spell. I guess Bronze Sable if you need early drops. What are you thinking about in this pack?
Well, I strongly considered Baleful Eidolon, and then I had my eye on Horizon Chimera and Dark Betrayal as possible cards that might wheel. But I decided I needed Time Defeat. I was a little bit light on removal. As I mentioned, I was worried about flyers. So both the life gain and the removal spell here was like really what I needed for my deck at this point.
Okay, so you picked Time Defeat again, just creatures and removal. Pretty good with that strategy. Let's take a look at the next pack. Kind of probably hurts to pass an Eidolon there. What are you thinking about with this pack?
This pack was between Sedge Scorpion and Commune with the Gods. The Scorpion, traditionally much better card, really good early defense, but I had already the Pharika's Chosen, the black counterpart to Sedge Scorpion. And I had the Nemesis Immortals and a few other graveyard cards, so I decided that Commune with the Gods was a little bit more valuable for my deck, even though most green drafters are probably going to want Sedge Scorpion more.
So this is a case of Sedge Scorpion, maybe a more powerful overall card, but Commune's good with your deck, and you're not going to wheel probably the Scorpion, so you don't even have to worry.
Yeah, I thought it was too unlikely to wheel Commune with the Gods that I would take the card that I wanted less.
Makes sense. Okay, let's round out finally this draft, the last pack of Theros here. Wow, Reid the Bones, Timuret, not that exciting. I mean, is this a straightforward pick for you?
In my opinion, yes. Reid the Bones is just one of my all-time favorite limited cards. Usually, both players play out some creatures, you trade a little bit, and then Reid the Bones is not that far off from drawing 4 cards at the point in the game when you're usually casting it. Putting lands on the bottom and just drawing 2 more gas spells is usually more than enough to take over a game that's stalled out.
All right, and finally, just to close this out, what else from Theros was there that you saw that rounded out, that's played out in your matches so far?
Mostly just, filling in the holes in my mana curve, a few more creatures, a couple, graveyard-related cards, and mostly, I guess, the big cards were the Time to Feed and the Farika's Cure, giving me early removal and defense against flyers.
All right, thanks very much. I think we had, one more slide to go through? Is that one more pick? No, I think this is it. So that's Reid Duke. That's your deck. Good luck, Reid. Let's stay tuned for more Pro Tour Journey into next.